Chapter 3: The Mathematics and Anatomy in a Crush. Alright, now we're getting into something a little different. In this chapter, I am going to connect mathematics and science to explain what I call the double attraction paradox. So imagine a sine graph and a cosine graph. These two waves represent you and your crush. You know that in calculus, if f prime of x equals 0 at a specific point, the graph of f of x has a horizontal tangent line. As the graphs move up and down, they create peaks and valleys. These highs and lows symbolize the emotional roller coaster of obsessive infatuation. The high points represent moments of euphoria, as shown by verbal or nonverbal cues such as eye contact, mirroring, or meaningful interaction. In contrast, the low points represent anxiety, fear of rejection, overthinking, or emotional distance. These extrema occur because the brain releases dopamine and lowers serotonin, which triggers a fight or flight response whenever someone develops limerence. Now, here's the important part. When these two graphs intersect, it represents moments where both people are aligned. Sometimes they reflect what we talked about earlier, the push and pull cycle, or hot and cold behavior. It is a type of inconsistency in relationships that alternate between intense attraction and sudden distance, which could demonstrate emotional unavailability or insecurity. As the graph increases, you and your crush may feel connected, energetic, or confident to take risks. But distance follows along due to fear of rejection. This is also the time where they regenerate their ego shield and prefrontal cortex to hide blushing or overwhelming thoughts. Now, imagine the graphs becoming more aligned over time. Instead of constantly crossing and separating, they begin to stabilize. This represents something important. It's a shift from imagination to reality. When two people communicate or accept each other's flaws and build something real, that is moving beyond a situationship, they break out of the cycle of obsession and uncertainty. Before we move on, I have a quick update for you all. I wrote down calculus answers on the board because our instructor was absent for 2 days, and this occurred last week. However, I saw something that surprised me. It was a smiley face with stars covering both eyes. It also had teeth and a star shining beneath that expression. I saw cursive words that said hi with a heart next to it. Could it have been my crush? Or did someone write it on purpose? Honestly, I suspected that no one would ever do that unless they had some kind of interest in my work. I was so agitated by the drawing that I kept looking back at it and concluded that this person seemed impressed with my work. Now I am saying this because it's a kind of pull tactic that is used to redirect my focal point. This type of cycle becomes a competition of whoever is going to be agitated first. But anyways, I will explain this further in chapter 5 and why this cycle can be pretty unhealthy for both individuals. Now, let's shift into the science behind all of this. Your brain plays a huge role in how you experience a crush. Take note of the following key vocabulary terms. The sympathetic nervous system. It is a component of the autonomic nervous system that triggers the fight or flight response, allowing the individual to respond urgently to danger. The prefrontal cortex is the anterior part of the frontal lobe that acts as the brain's command center for decision making and task organization. The temporal lobe is the area in the brain that interprets sounds, speech, objects, and social cues. The hypothalamus is the commander center of the brain that keeps the body in a state of homeostasis by managing hormones, hunger/thirst levels, stress response, and body temperature. The amygdala is an area in the brain that interprets body language, processes emotions, and communicates with the whole body to prepare for the sympathetic nervous system. When it detects danger in an environment, this can override the prefrontal cortex due to the production of norepinephrine, leading to a fight or flight response. Then we have neurotransmitters. They are chemical messengers that send signals across neurons from the nervous to the muscular system. And finally, hormones are chemical messengers that slowly travel across the bloodstream to affect certain organs, whether it is the breathing rate or the heartbeat. And to be a bit more specific on the dynamics of a crush, love hormones influence how individuals bond, stay close, or choose partners. Their proportions vary from person to person, and it can be unique. So now, each hormone has a variety of functions that differ from one another. For instance, we have dopamine, which is also known as the feel-good hormone. During early stages of infatuation, the brain increases the production of this hormone, which creates the honeymoon phase. It is a phase where individuals feel pleasure and enthusiasm as they see their crush, which often lasts for months, for a few months or so. And dopamine is associated with euphoria, which potentially heightens the way we see our partner. But after all, it is a reward hormone that drives action by boosting focus and cognition. Then we have norepinephrine or noradrenaline. When we are attracted to someone, the brain produces noradrenaline in the locus coeruleus, a nucleus in the brainstem or the pons. This heightens alertness and arousal, which increases blood pressure and boosts emotional intensity in a situationship. High levels of norepinephrine can drive limerence by creating a roller coaster feeling of euphoria and anxiety. This explains the phenomenon behind the high highs and low lows, where people get excited with their crushes mirroring or presence, but all of a sudden anxious when detachment occurs. What triggers the release of norepinephrine? Phenethylamine, a neurotransmitter, creates a dizzy sensation that people feel when falling in love. Its primary function is to enhance the process of releasing noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin, which in turn uplifts one's mood, energy, and focus. Did you know that this substance is a natural compound found in cacao beans? When people eat chocolate, our bodies break it down quickly during digestion, which may not create any stimulation. Then we have oxytocin, which is also known as the love hormone. During eye contact or deep conversations, the hypothalamus produces oxytocin, which is then released by the posterior pituitary gland into the bloodstream. This creates euphoria with our crush, promoting trust, security, and closeness. It also strengthens memories of positive social interactions and combats cortisol to feel at ease. Then we have cortisol, the stress hormone. When crushes undergo withdrawal in a push or pull cycle, it creates uncertainty, anxiety, and the fear of rejection. As a result, cortisol is released from the adrenal glands, causing the blood pressure and heart rate to increase. This initiates the fight or flight response, and when serotonin is depleted, it can lead to obsessive thoughts and decreased appetite. Next, we have serotonin. This hormone usually regulates mood and stabilizes emotional highs and lows. But whenever an individual develops obsessive thoughts with a crush, its levels decrease, which lead to a brain hijack. One might end up prioritizing the infatuation over everything else. And nevertheless, it can also disrupt cognitive thinking, causing someone to stammer over their words, preen intensely, or mirror the other person's body language. And finally, we have sex hormones. First, we're going to go over testosterone. It is a sex hormone that boosts libido, aggressiveness, and energy to pursue romantic interactions. Although testosterone is mostly found in men, women can also possess this hormone to inherit higher selectivity and confidence. But did you also know that this hormone may play a role in why people suddenly gain the courage to contact their crush and break the ice? It can heighten confidence, boldness, and the desire to pursue romantic interaction. And finally, we have estrogen. It primarily regulates menstrual cycles in women. It can also stimulate a higher libido and encourage intimacy by boosting emotional intensity. So when you combine all of this, the math, the brain, and the hormones, you start to see that a crush is not just a feeling. It's a pattern of highs and lows, chemistry, perception, connection, and uncertainty. And that's exactly what the double attraction paradox represents. It contributes to an endless cycle between two individuals that constantly circulates what ifs and lingering euphoria. If we do not know how to control our emotions, we can fall into limerence, which is what the next chapter will be about. You will be able to distinguish between lust, limerence, and real love as I break down the philosopher's discussion group to teach you all how to manage euphoria and relate my experience with yours. Thank you.